Tonight, the nation is bleeding. Minister of Defense admits dire security situation, says federal government is strategizing to eliminate all enemies of state. Northern governors take their concerns over increasing insecurity to the president, as Governor Otom blames situation on federal government's action and inaction. A day after 30 people were killed in 4 Zamfara communities, at least 50 other residents reportedly dead following more attacks by gunmen. And US to cut emissions almost by half as the country once again rallies the world to tackle climate change. Plus, business, sports, news from Abuja, and later international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, Department of Petroleum Resources to assess revoked OML assets of Adax Petroleum ahead of official handover to new operators.
On sports news tonight, International Olympic Committee bans athletes from protesting on podiums and the field of play at the Tokyo Olympics and Beijing Winter Games.
From Abuja, Nigeria Labour Congress threatens to embark on nationwide strike over the sack of civil servants by the Kaduna State Governor.
The attacks across the country keeps getting worrisome, and today the Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Magashi, sums it all up, saying the nation is bleeding. But there are words of assurances from the minister that government is adopting a method to tactically eliminate all political, ethnic and religious enemies of the country. Major General Magashi made the comments at the special weekly ministerial briefing in the State House. Other focal points at the briefing is the minister's condemnation of attacks on the military and the tightening up of security at the country's borders with Chad. Our correspondent Gloria Mizuke reports.
In continuation of special briefings at the State House, this time by the Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Magashi, the murder of about a dozen soldiers in Benue State became central.
The military is not taking kindly of that. Let me just tell you this. Whoever touches the military has no regard for this country. Make no mistakes that our nation is bleeding now. It is bleeding because the self-interest and other primordial consideration underlying decisions, quite a number of our elites, political, ethnic, and religious, make it so. We have made a comprehensive, detailed brief as far as the security of this country is concerned, and the method we want to take in ensuring that we strategically and tactically get rid of all our enemies in this country.
As the minister officially confirms arrest of Boko Haram sponsors in Kano State, he confirms that more military hardware is expected in the shortest possible time, but there will be more trouble if insecurity escalates in neighboring Chad.
We are beefing up all our borders to ensure that refugees, they don't flow into our country. The issue of weapons and armament, we are also afraid of that. Before, Chad is the buffer, stopping most of this infiltration of weapons and the rest of it. Now, it's free for all, right from Libya down to Nigeria. It's very easy now because of the absence of the influence of Chad in that route. So we also have to take care of that and prepare our minds to it.
In another reaction, Major General Magashi further argues that he does not believe that all bandits be killed to halt insecurity in schools.
With my little experience as a lawyer for 37 years, I think I know the rule of law. I know how decisions are taken. Everybody is innocent till he is found guilty. We'll try to administer justice to all of them. But where we catch them with weapons, somebody trying to kill you, what do? You will allow him to kill you before you make complaint? That area we will not compromise.
Exactly.
In spite of the affirmation that the nation is hemorrhaging, the defense minister is explicitly asserting that the political will to confront security issues in the country is not lacking. What is, however, most urgent is that neighboring countries come up with a coordinated response to tackle insurgency, especially at the region's borders. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The security situation is also a major worry for the governors of the northern states. So they decided to meet with the president today to discuss possible ways out of the situation. At the meeting, the president reiterates his commitment to ensuring the safety of lives and return of peace to the region. The governors of Kaduna, Zamfara, Plateau, Sokoto, Katsina and Nasarawa states were at the meeting, after which their chairman, who is also the governor of Plateau State, briefed the media on the session with the president.
Meeting is in respect of some of the common features of insecurity that we have within our states. You recall that many of the states have some of the insecurities that are very similar. So within us here, we have a lot of them that are similar. We put them together on how to address some of those issues. And we felt that we must also meet Mr. President about it. It's about the insecurity. The meeting with the President was very fruitful, and we are also very committed, and we have seen a lot of commitments, so we're waiting for the implementation. You will see what will happen. I think that's the assurance I will give you, because based on this meeting, we will also wait to see the commitment, and Mr. President has given us that assurance.
But for Governor Samuel Ortom of Benue State, who has consistently sought for credible solutions to the security problems in the country, the inaction of the federal government towards the activities of armed herdsmen and bandits is a demonstration of government's complicity in the killings and kidnappings going on across the country. The governor believes this trend has continued to create a sense of insecurity and strife among ethnic nationalities. He wants the federal government to prescribe and designate the Mieti Allah Katalore and all its other armed wings as terrorists.
The action and inaction of government is clearly demonstrating that they have adopted what these people are doing. As far as I'm concerned, Boko Haram, Fulani herdsmen, Israel, ISIS, all of them are working towards the same goal in Nigeria. Let nobody deceive me. So that is it. And as long as Nigerians do not take this serious, they started as herdsmen. Then now they are called one bandit. But why are they not being declared terrorists, despite all our previous pleading and appeals and begging that these people should be proscribed, just like it was done to iPod and iPod and Biafra? What is the difference? What have those people done? Have they killed the number of people that these Fulani herdsmen are killing? No. They came in the name of they want to rear their cattle. So they want their cattle to eat grass here and drink water. Now that we have a law that make a provision for ranching, they prohibits open grazing. They now keep their cattle in neighboring states and come here and kill our people without cattle and go back. By the grace of God, God will protect us from these evil men that have come to destroy Nigeria. But the federal government knows them, so the federal government should stop them.
Still on security, there's still tension in some parts of Zamfara state where armed bandits have again invaded several communities in simultaneous attacks, which have left many people dead and several others wounded. Many residents, especially members of the vigilante group, were reportedly killed in Gusau and Maru local government areas of the state. The bandits stormed the communities in the early hours of Wednesday and started shooting sporadically to scare the locals before unleashing terror on them. There are reports that about 50 persons may have been killed in the attack. A similar incident happened in Kajuru area of Kaduna State, where suspected kidnappers abducted 2 nurses working with Idon's General Hospital. The incident comes 2 days after several students were abducted and 1 person killed by bandits during an attack on Greenfield University along the Kaduna-Abuja Highway in Chukun local government area. The chairman of Kajuru local government area, Mr. Safra Kaino, says the bandits gained access through the fence with deadly weapons and started shooting within the hospital premises. He explains that 2 nurses who were on night duty were kidnapped. Meanwhile, a management staff of the Greenfield University in Chukun local government area says 23 people were kidnapped after the bandits attacked the school on Tuesday night. The number includes 14 girls, 6 boys and 3 members of staff. He also said that the bandits have established contact with some parents of the abducted students and have made a demand of 800 million naira ransom. Moving down south, an operative of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, attached to the private residence of the University of Benin Bossa has been killed. The incident happened when armed men attempted to kidnap the institution's bossa, Mr. Victor Imagbe, at his residence in Benin City. They opened fire on sighting the personnel of the NSCDC at his residence. While the attackers were repelled by the men of the Civil Defense Corps and the kidnap plan foiled, one of them was shot and subsequently died from the injuries he sustained. A member of the kidnappers' gang was also said to have been wounded. Another security operative also lost his life to the bullets of bandits in Oyo State, but this time it's a member of the Amotekun Local Security Corps who was killed in an ambush in the Fiditi area of Atiba local government area of the state. The leadership of the Amotekun Corps said in a statement that the 25-year-old was part of the Amotekun security aides providing protection for workers at a farm in the area when they were attacked. The victim's colleague also sustained gunshot wounds but survived and is currently receiving treatment at the General Hospital. Meanwhile, police authorities in Oyo State say they have not received any reports on the purported abduction of some passengers in the Ibarakwa area of the state.
There is nothing like that. There was no kind of kidnapping like that. The DPO is here. You could interview him. All the DPOs and area commanders within that area, they are out and they've confirmed nothing like that happened. So let people desist from all these baseless and false rumors that they meet out, flooding the social media, making people to be afraid.
In the meantime, the presidency has finally broken its silence on the controversy surrounding the comments made by the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, several years back when he lent his support to activities of terror groups. President Buhari's spokesperson, Mr. Garba Shehu, today ruled out the position of the federal government on the matter, noting that the Buhari administration stands by Mr. Pantami while alleging that information and communication technology companies are the ones behind cause for his removal. The statement reads in part, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Issa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, is currently subject to a cancel campaign instigated by those who seek his removal. They do not really care what he may or may not have said some 20 years ago. That is merely the instrument they are using to attempt to cancel him. But they will profit should he be stopped from making decisions that improve the lives of everyday Nigerians. The statement adds that the minister and the current administration have made enemies, and there are those in the opposition who see success and want it halted by any means. In part two, after the break, National Economic Council affirms Nigeria's unity despite security challenges, debunks claim that 60 billion naira was printed to support March allocation. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. The nation is bleeding. Minister of Defense admits dire security situation, says federal government is strategizing to eliminate all enemies of state. Northern governors take their concerns over increasing insecurity to the president as Governor Otom blames situation on federal government's action and inaction. A day after 30 people were killed in 4 Zamfara communities, at least 50 other residents reportedly dead following more attacks by gunmen. And US to cut emissions almost by half as the country once again rallies the world to tackle climate change. The legislature is also making a push for the safety of lives and property in the country, but first they want to do some fact-finding. The lawmakers in the House of Representatives say they will investigate the incessant jailbreaks in the country. The matter was raised as a motion of urgent public importance by Representative Ifeanyi Moma, who says he is concerned about the security structures at the prisons. Now, another controversy, the alleged printing of 60 billion naira by the federal government to shore up allocation to states for the month of March is far from over, as the National Economic Council is maintaining that nothing of such happened. This was the position taken at the end of the National Economic Council meeting, after clarifications were made by the Nigerian Governors Forum, the Minister of Finance and the Central Bank Governor on the allegation. The Senior Special Assistant to the Vice President, Mr. Laolu Akonde, says Council also resolved to adopt the report of the National Town Hall meeting on unity and security, affirming Nigeria's unity.
There was no 60 billion CBN money printed for March FAC. Haven't had presentations on the controversy generated regarding insinuations of alleged printing of 60 billion naira to augment MAC allocations. The Council affirmed that there is no truth whatsoever in the claim. Today's meeting revealed the controversy and heard from the Finance Minister, the Nigerian Governors Forum as represented by the Ekiti State Governor and the CBN Governor. Both the Minister and the CBN Governor stated categorically to the Council that the allegation of the printing of money to augment allocation is outrightly false. The NGF also supported the conclusion, and NEC affirmed same as the highest constitutional body tasked with economic affairs in the country.
The attention of citizens in Nigeria are beginning to shift from the mobilization and distribution of resources to fight COVID-19 to how resources, especially finances, were used at the heat of the pandemic in the country. Civil society organizations that have been tracking COVID-19 spending in the country say there is huge mismanagement of resources. A report presented by Budget and Connected Development, which are civil society organizations that track the disbursement of COVID-19 finances and government palliatives, insists that citizens need to ask critical questions that will hold government accountable in the management of the resources.
It's the first meeting by representatives of some civil society organizations to discuss their findings on the way finances and other resources used for curbing the spread of COVID-19 were utilized in 7 African countries. Although the project, which is codenamed COVID-19 Transparency and Accountability in Africa, targets COVID-19 donations and spendings in 7 African countries, the focus of the discussions here is on Nigeria. According to Action Aid Nigeria, donations worth 96 trillion naira came in from donors, including the European Union, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank, in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the many unanswered questions about the way these donations were utilized is the reason why this conversation is holding.
We really have data on the Nigerian government spendings, or the donations that have come in. I just saw the whole collection. Almost everybody is recorded in the data. And we are seeing that even in this struggle of COVID-19, some people are still stealing money. It's shocking to see.
The facilitators of the COVID-19 Transparency and Accountability in Africa are promising to publish their findings in the days ahead. But what are some of the highlights of the report?
Some of the people who were beneficiaries of the homegrown school feeding program or even the conditional cash transfer had a shortfall. So government was saying they didn't have enough money. That was strange. And then paying some people less than what they meant to get or collecting kickback behind the classroom that this money were being disbursed. I think that we got it wrong.
Among other things, there were a few cases that really stood out. The diversion of funds to the personal accounts of proprietors of federal colleges was particularly striking. And finally, we identified the corruption in the NDDC that involved allocation of funds for COVID-19 before COVID-19 even happened.
No doubt, the national response to COVID-19 has shifted to vaccines procurement and distribution. But the extent to which government is held accountable for how previous phases of the response were executed will to a large extent determine the transparency and accountability that citizens would see in the new phase of response.
Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, Mr. Clement Agba, has been reacting to claims that the federal government has received over $5.6 billion as donations to address the challenge of COVID-19 in the country. Mr. Agba condemns the report, describing it as false and misleading. He, however, explains that government's intervention in tackling the pandemic, which resulted in low oil and non-oil receipts, is yielding investments in the nation's health sector. He made the comments after a meeting of the Open Government Partnership in Abuja.
Let me also use this opportunity to speak to some of the things I saw on Twitter yesterday, where one of the civil society organizations to whom I want to go and address now are saying that the country received a donation of $5.6 billion. That is incorrect. Nigeria did not receive a donation of $5.6 billion to take care of COVID. What indeed happened is that as a result of the shortfall in revenue due to COVID-19, where there were supply disruptions, the demand for oil also fell. It led to a reduction in the price of crude the world over. And because of this demand issue, OPEC and OPEC Plus had to reduce production of the various member countries. And Nigeria was not left out. We have a capacity of producing about 2.5 million barrels a day, but we were restricted to 1.4 billion barrels. And you know what that means. It seriously affected our revenues. And the price came as low as $12 in April last year. So we needed to look for funds to ensure that we augment the budget in order to ensure that we meet up with stimulating the economy. So it's not correct that Nigeria had a donation of $5.6 billion.
And some eminent Nigerians in Lagos have been paying tributes to human rights activist Yinka Odumakin. Political leaders who graced the event in honor of Mr. Odumakin, who died on Friday, April the 2nd, say his battle for a better Nigeria must continue to achieve the nation we all dream of.
It's a day of tributes for the late Yinka Odumakin, human rights activist who fought for democracy and the mouthpiece of Afenifere, a Yoruba socio-political group.
Mr. Speaker.
Political leaders are here to pay their last respects to a journalist turned activist.
May we all be committed to serving Nigeria. The society we are building today will take its revenge on our children tomorrow. Let us, for Yinka's sake, work and serve Nigeria.
We can only pray that all of those things that he fought for, we will find a formula, a way to make sure that we have a better Nigeria.
Others highlight the struggle of Odumakin that should not be forgotten.
He wanted the best for Nigeria. He wanted the best for his Yoruba nation. But he was completely detribalized. And he uses his voice to advance the cause and the needs of the voiceless.
You stood shoulder to shoulder. Your voices cried out loud, not for yourselves, but for Nigeria and for humanity. For this, we owe you an eternal debt of gratitude.
The leader of the Afenifere group says restructuring is the only way forward for a better nation.
Those of us who are talking of restructuring, we are the people who want Nigeria to stay. The suffering is much. And if they don't restructure Nigeria, they will have more Igbo, they have more Indominicano, they have more Igbozi, and we cannot repress them. I don't support secession, I don't oppose you. Please, carry on the fight. You will win, no matter the impediment.
The late Yinka Odumakin began his activism in the year 1986 as a member of the Alliance for Progressive Students, and his agitations for a better Nigeria was never hidden, even till his last days.
On the news at 10 returns, we have more stories from Abuja studios, plus Department of Petroleum Resources to assess revoked OML assets of Petroleum ahead of handover to new operators. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Let's go over to our Abuja studios where Terry Kumi is standing by with more stories. Terry.
Hello, Millicent, and welcome to the nation's capital. The Nigeria Labour Congress is threatening to embark on a nationwide strike over what it describes as unlawful dismissal of civil servants by the Kaduna State Governor. President of the NLC, Mr. Ayuba Waba, disclosed this at a news conference in Abuja after a meeting of the Central Working Committee. According to him, all members of the NLC will down tools nationwide for 5 days in the first instance. And if nothing is done by relevant government agencies, the workers' union will think of the next line of action.
CWC is recommended to the meeting of the National Executive Council, which is to take place immediately. The line of action that will be taken against the Kaduna State government for having violated the provision of our laws. CWC have decided and have also recommended to the National Executive Council that Labour will withdraw all services from either public or private from all sectors of the economy for 5 days in the first instance, and where there is no remorse, that is going to be a total action, because we believe that El-Rufai is not alone in this action, that neoliberal forces and also some governments are also part of it. And we wondered why this action have not been called to order by other relevant agencies of government because of the grave implication of this action. And this action is going to be total and unconditional. And therefore, all unions will be issuing statement and directive to their members to take this directive seriously, and that the action will go ahead. Comrade, this action is taken as a matter of last resort, because all the communications that we have written so far on this issue have not received the attention of any person. And therefore, we thought that workers should not be allowed to die in silence, because thousands of workers that have been sacked have not been paid in line with the provision of the law.
Meanwhile, the Osun State chapters of the Nigerian Bar Association, the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, and Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria today joined the nationwide protest against the non-implementation of the financial autonomy for the judiciary. The unions marched peacefully through the streets of Osogbo, the state capital, before heading towards the governor's office, where they were denied access by security operatives. After waiting for about 45 minutes demanding to see the governor, the State Commissioner for Justice and Head of Service showed up to calm frayed nerves, but the protesters insisted on meeting with the governor. Members of the NBA lament that the industrial action by the judicial workers is affecting pending cases in various courts and speedy dispensation of justice. To the courts now, the courts in Lagos State remain shut. That's the directive from the national body of the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, JUSUN. This counter-directive is coming hours after the Lagos State chapter of JUSUN said it had relaxed its strike rules to allow for clearance of backlogs, reading of judgments, and the congestion of prisons occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic and the End SARS protest. A statement from the chairman of JUSUN in Lagos, Shobowale Kehinde, said work and official duties are constrained to Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of every week, while Monday and Tuesday of every week remain strike days, and all staff must stay off duty to observe the national strike. When Channels Television monitored the Lagos courts to see whether they had opened for partial work, we met the gate of the Lagos High Court Ikeja firmly shut, with members of the Lagos JUSUN monitoring compliance. A few judiciary workers who had showed up for work said off-camera that they were not allowed into the court premises. A representative of the Lagos chapter of JUSUN told Channels TV that though the chapter was sympathetic to the partial resumption of work, the national body had overruled the decision and directed the Lagos branch to resume full strike. The Ogun State government has commenced initiating a robust transport policy and master plan as part of its urban development policy in order to reposition the state and create an enabling environment for economic growth and development. Receiving the transport policy document from the steering committee at the executive chamber of the governor's office, the state governor, Dakwa Abiodun, promised the necessary political will and legislations to ensure the success of the project. The transport policy framework is expected to develop the land, water, rail and air modules of the state's transport system.
Critical stakeholders and development partners in the transportation subsector are adequately represented at this event to unveil a transport roadmap for Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, a city projected to grow from its current 700,000 inhabitants to 2.5 million by the year 2035. The roadmap is seen as an important element in efforts to reposition the state as an emerging economy, as experts call for capacity building, reformation, and specific budgetary allocation for the sector.
We have developed a capacity building plan, and indeed, the implementation of this has already started in the course of the work.
At the time of this study, road, rail, and water are the ones that are actually providing the necessary interaction for socio-economic facility.
Last year, Governor Dakwa Abiodun inaugurated a steering committee on Transport Master Plan with a charge on members to come up with recommendations that would change the face of transportation in the state. The committee members are ready with their recommendations contained in these two reports.
I have been very impatient about the implementation of the reports of both of these committees. So because I have my commissioner as part of both committees, we have been sitting down, deliberating, I've been interrogating him. And he confirmed to you that earlier this week, I gave him a timeline on some particular steps, which I'm sure he will share with you. So you can tell that we are actually ahead of the game.
It's a project that's already receiving support from development partners.
We'd really like to see the policy to be put into action. So the governor talked about not letting things sit on the shelf as documents, but to be put into action and the legislation to underpin them, and to use that to advertise that Ogun State is putting a robust transport policy in place and hopefully attract investment to the state.
The Ogun State's transport policy framework is a deliberate effort by the government to stimulate ease of doing business and economic transformation.
Well, that's all from Abuja. Business News is next with Anne Waodu.
Thank you, Terry. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Department of Petroleum Resources says that it has set up a team of experts to help evaluate the revoked oil assets of Adax Petroleum Exploration Nigeria. According to a statement by the DPR, the revoked assets comprise an oil mining license 123, 124, 126 and 137 will be formally handed over to the new operators and the consortium once the evaluation is completed. It adds that the DPR maintains committed to reactive all moribund oil and gas support facilities across the country. The committee has been given 1 week to conclude the task. The Petroleum Regulatory Agency had revoked the 4 production sharing contracts owing to their non-development by Adax Petroleum for several years. Meanwhile, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has signed an agreement for the development of gas from the oil mining lease 143 with indigenous oil exploration and production firm Sterling Exploration and Energy Production Company. According to a tweet by the state-owned oil firm, the execution of the deal is to help reduce gas flaring in the country and provide gas for the domestic market. Both parties had signed a gas commercialization deal back in September last year, in line with the federal government's National Gas Expansion Program. Nigerian Breweries PLC has declared a dividend of 94 kobo per share for the year ending December the 31st, 2020. And this was announced at the company's 75th annual general meeting in Lagos, presided over by the chairman of the board, Kolawole Jamodu. Nigerian Breweries also posted a profit of 7.526 billion naira despite the impact of the pandemic.
That I welcome you to this.
It's the 75th annual general meeting of Nigerian Breweries PLC. Chairman of the board of directors, some management staff and shareholders representatives, regulators, observers are among the handful of people allowed in the hall to make room for social distancing as required by the COVID-19 protocol. Others are to join virtually.
A total proxy form of 188.
The business of the day is to report the performance of the company as at 31st December 2020. Clarifications on the report are sorted by shareholders' representatives and answers are provided.
We continue to put efforts to explore the potential of the growth in this market.
A dividend of 94 kobo per share is said to be declared.
I hereby move that the total dividend of 7,517,087,928 naira only, that is 94 kobo only.
And the board's resolution is put to a vote. It's 100% yes. Other activities on the menu, including constitution of the audit committee, board of directors, also take place. 2020 was a particularly difficult year for businesses as social activities were paralyzed and cost of operations skyrocketed. These factors have had its impact, but Nigerian Breweries appears to have braved this storm.
And one of the shareholders said it. Consistently, we have made sure that shareholders get return on their investment, no matter how small it might be.
The shareholders display a strong sense of understanding and look forward to a better future.
They have done very well. They have competitors. Most brewery industry today, how many are in Nigeria, cannot even pay dividend. That's the truth.
Nigerian Breweries' net revenue grew by 4.3% in 2020 to 337 billion naira from 323 billion in 2019.
The banking index at the local equities market tilts bearish today, halting previous gains recorded earlier this week. Let's see the closing numbers, and Nini John Mekwa will tell us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report.
The bull run was sustained in the market for the 4th consecutive trading day this week as the all-share index, the equity cap inched marginally. The number of deals and volume of trade went down compared to yesterday, but value was higher at 2.64 billion naira, indicating that fewer investors bought heavier stocks today. Tier 1 lenders, GT Bank, Zenith and FBN Holdings dominated the top trade, but that was not enough to shore up the banking sector as it dropped marginally by 0.04%. Consumer goods was also down by 0.01%. However, oil and gas showed up at today's trading, scooping a positive 0.21%. Shares of Cortex was the most sought after by investors, closing 7% higher, followed by PZ and Yinka. EcoCorp topped the losers chart, dropping a whooping 10%. Well, just one more trading day left this week. Will the bull outrun the bear? We'll wait and see. That's the stock market report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
And that's business news. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Mwawado. The rest of the news at 10 continues with Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, U.S. to cut emissions almost by half as the country once again rallies the world to tackle climate change, plus other international news from our London studio. Please stay with us. U.S. President Joe Biden has announced his country will be cutting carbon emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by the end of this decade. He said this to leaders attending the Global Climate Summit virtually. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. India has recorded the highest one-day tally of new COVID-19 cases anywhere in the world and the country's highest number of deaths over 24 hours. The country has close to 16 million confirmed cases, second only to the United States. India is in the grip of a second wave, raising more fears about its overwhelmed healthcare system. Reports say that crowds have formed outside hospitals in major cities, which are filled to capacity, and a number of people have died while waiting for oxygen. Russian police have arrested over 1,000 protesters after supporters of jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny rallied in cities nationwide. More than 14,000 people protested in 29 cities, including 6,000 people who gathered in Moscow. They are calling for Navalny, who has been on hunger strike for weeks, to receive proper medical care. His allies say he risks kidney failure or cardiac arrest. The protesters defied stark warnings from the authorities and a heavy police presence in most major cities. The US has vowed to cut its greenhouse gas emissions by at least half by the end of the decade.
The United States isn't waiting.
The new target aims to see US emissions drop 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. President Biden has made the announcement as he welcomes 40 leaders to a virtual two-day summit on climate change. The new target represents a stark break from the climate denialist presidency of Donald Trump. Australia has scrapped agreements tied to China's Belt and Road Initiative, prompting anger from Beijing and adding further strain to tense relations between the countries.
They are not consistent with Australia's approach to foreign policy.
The federal government used new powers to rip up two deals made between the state of Victoria and China. Canberra said it was backing away from the agreements to protect Australia's national interest. China's foreign ministry warned that Australia should avoid making already strained bilateral ties worse and that China reserves the right to take further actions. The Indonesian Navy says it has about 72 hours left to rescue 53 crew members of a missing submarine before they run out of oxygen. The vessel is thought to have disappeared about 60 miles off the coast of Bali. The German-built submarine had been conducting a drill but failed to report back and contact was lost. The Navy said that an oil spill found near where the submarine dived could point to fuel tank damage or could also be a signal from the crew. 6 warships, a helicopter and 400 people are involved in the search. A bomb explosion at a luxury hotel in the Pakistani city of Quetta has killed 5 people and wounded 12. The Pakistani Taliban said it was behind the blast in the car park of the Serena Hotel and that it had targeted police officers and other officials. China's ambassador to Pakistan was staying at the Serena Hotel, but authorities say he was not there when the bomb exploded. In recent months, the group and other militant organizations have stepped up attacks in tribal areas near the border with Afghanistan. Italian prosecutors have concluded an inquiry into a deadly 2018 motorway collapse and are preparing possible charges against 69 former employees as well as government officials. A road bridge run by Altantia's motorway gave way in the northern city of Genoa on August the 14th in 2018, killing 43 people. Prosecutors have looked into allegations that its management did not take proper care of the highway and that officials at the Transport Ministry failed to oversee necessary maintenance. Under Italian law, once an investigation has been closed, suspects have 3 weeks to respond. The African Union Peace and Security Council has held a meeting over the situation in Chad and Somalia. The assembly comes just a day after opposition politicians in Chad rejected the country's army appointment of President Idris Déby's son to take over in the wake of his death. Meanwhile, Somalia is also facing a constitutional crisis following an electoral impasse of presidential and parliamentary elections. The AU Council can recommend sanctions against member states which violate its Charter on Democracy and Governance. And finally, NASA has announced that its Perseverance rover has extracted the first sample of oxygen from Mars. The 6-wheeled robot has converted a sample of the red planet's carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere into oxygen through an instrument aboard the rover known as MOXIE. NASA said the first conversion of carbon dioxide to oxygen could open up possibilities for further experimentation toward the goal of seeing humans on Mars in the future. The gadget created 5 grams of oxygen, which is enough for an astronaut to breathe for around 10 minutes. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. The International Olympic Committee has banned athletes from protesting on podiums and the field of play at the Tokyo Olympics and Beijing Winter Games after recommendations from the Athletes Commission. The IOC says more than 2/3 of 3,547 athletes polled agreed that it is not appropriate to demonstrate or express their views on the victory podium, field of play, or at official ceremonies. The World Athletics has confirmed that Nigeria will participate in 5 events at the World Relays built to hold from May the 1st to the 2nd in Poland. The Global Athletics Governing Body says Nigeria will feature in the 4x100 meters men, 4x400 meters men, 4x100 meters women, 4x400 meters women, and 4x400 meters mixed. And the Nigeria Cricket Federation has called up 5 players from Edo State's high performance program among the 20 players for national camping at the Tafawa Balewa Square in Lagos. The Lagos camp will mark the beginning of a series of training and tours for Nigeria's senior men's team in preparation for the upcoming ICC T20 World Cup Africa qualifiers against Kenya in November. And that sports news is back to you, Melissa.
And the main news again. The Minister of Defense, Bashir Magashi, today admitted that the country is in a dire security situation and said the federal government is strategizing to eliminate all enemies of state. General Magashi said the nation is bleeding. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Melissa Walker. Stay safe. Have a good night.